Today we will learn how to answer this specific question. Evaluate two research methods in the study used in the brain and behavior. Now listen to this very carefully. There are three terms, keywords that are very important. Every time you're going to answer any question for the IB psychology students, whenever you're going to answer, please underline these three important keywords. The first keyword here is evaluate. So you need to structure your answer in such a way where you are evaluating the answer. Okay, so first is evaluate. The second is research methods. And the third keyword is the brain and the behavior. Now, once you know that these are the three keywords, how we are going to answer it. Now, the first keyword, let's focus on the brain and the behavior. That means you have to pick up the studies anywhere from the brain and the behavior. That means from your biological approach. So anytime brain and behavior comes in, you have to pick up the study from the biological approach. So that is one thing you have taken care of. Now you know if it's brain and behavior, from biological approach you're taking the studies. Now the second is that you have to pick up the studies. That is you can take any 2 studies, 2 to 4 studies you must write, that all IB psychology students know for their 22 marker question. Okay. Now the second keyword here is the research methods. That means you have to take care, you have to write the research methods that are used in those studies. So in biological approach, you must have learned a lot of studies in your localization, neuroplasticity, neurotransmitters, genes, genetics, and so on. So you can pick any randomly 2 studies that you are sure about, you're confident about, and you have to write on the research methods of these studies. Okay. Now here, one of the very most important point here to remember for the students is, most of the students start focusing on the study. You don't have to focus on the study. You have to focus on research methods of the study. Okay, I'll be telling you how to answer it. Now, third thing is evaluate. Whenever the evaluate command term comes in, that means you have to talk about its strengths and weaknesses. So either limitations or strengths or weaknesses or strengths, whatever you call it. So evaluate simply means you need to evaluate what we are evaluating, either the study we are evaluating or the research method we are evaluating or the model we are evaluating. So what here we are evaluating? Evaluating means strength and the weaknesses. This we are clear about, right? Now here what we are evaluating? We are evaluating the research methods. That means what research method you are using in the study. You need to write the strengths and weaknesses of the research method that you're using in the study. Here most of the students make a mistake by writing focusing more on the strengths and weaknesses of the study. So they read, it's written evaluate, and they start evaluating the strengths and weaknesses of the study. You don't have to do that. It's very clearly written, evaluate the research methods of the study used in the brain and the behavior. So that means you have to write the strengths and weaknesses of the research methods that are being used in the study. Now, how do we answer this? And I'll keep telling you about the few, main points that you need to remember while you're answering this question. Now, these are the things that you must remember. You have to write 2 research methods that must be identified and described. So you need to tell that what 2 research methods you are going to focus on. Okay. Then another point is, one study must be used for each method to illustrate how it is used. I'll be telling you while we answer the question. I'll tell you how to do it. Third is, the study must be explained in terms of the method. That means the study that you are writing, it must be explained what was the method that was being used in the study. Fourth, all research must be clearly related to the biological approach, because it is from the brain and the behavior, it is from the biological approach. So all the research that you are writing, it must clearly relate to the biological approach. And last is, both strengths and limitations of the research methods should be discussed, because this is what the main idea is, that we need to evaluate the strengths and limitations of the research methods and not just of the study. Now let's see the answer here. The first thing that we need to focus is on the biological approach. So what is the brain and behavior, that will do with the starting. So this is the opening line that we need to start with. Then comes, after biological approach, which are the different methods that are used to investigate how these biological factors influence our behavior. And these two research methods that are used, what are these research methods that we have to write. So basically here what you have to do, you have to start with brain and behavior. What is brain and behavior? That is your biological approach. That is your opening line of the answer of 22 marker. After this comes your how this brain and behavior is investigated or studied. What are the different research methods that you use in investigating this brain and behavior? So you write what are the different research methods. Then after that, this is now a general opening. This is a general knowledge of the whole answer. After your first paragraph, that is the general knowledge, comes in your specific knowledge. After this, you are going to write one specific research method, any research method about which your, the study is related to. What that method is, research method, that you are going to explain in detail. This is going to be your specific knowledge. For example, in your study, let's say it's H.M. Milner, I'm going to use. H.M. Milner, you all know, is a case study. So in the second paragraph, you are going to write specific knowledge, that is everything about the case study. What are case studies? The features of case study, everything about the case study. All right. Once you have written that specific knowledge, then comes in your study number 1. You are going to write the whole study. Make sure that in study you are mentioning the research methods very clearly, because here our focus should not be only on the study. It should be majorly on the research method that is being used in this study. So you are writing the research method very clearly in the study, and make sure your second paragraph where you have written it's a case study is somewhere linked to the study very clearly. So that is how you structure your study. Then comes in your evaluation. Now when you write the strengths and the weaknesses, when you write the evaluation, you don't have to evaluate the study here. You have to evaluate the research method that was used in the study. That in this study, the case study, this was the strength of using this, case study in this experiment or study, and what were the weaknesses. So I'll tell you how to structure the answer. I'm just giving you a skeleton right now, that this is how you're going to structure, what you have to write, what content you have to write. I'll be telling you this soon. Then comes your, after you have written this evaluation, then comes in your specific knowledge, second specific knowledge. Let's say it was a lab experiment. You write everything about that research method, that what kind of research method was used, what is lab experiment, what are the key features of the lab experiment, and then you write the second study. If you plan to do third or fourth study, you do it in a similar manner. After you write your second study, again you evaluate that research method, about the evaluate the study, the research method that is being used in the study. And then last is the conclusion paragraph. Okay, so now let's I'll give you the answer here, and let's do it. So the first paragraph, like I said, is an opening paragraph for the whole essay. So it should be general knowledge, and it should be talking about the brain and the behavior, and how and what kind of research methods are used in the brain and behavior. So this is your opening paragraph. It goes like, psychologists in the biological approach try to find specific biological correlates of behavior. Different methods are used to investigate how biological factors such as brain structures or hormones may influence behavior. Two research methods that are used in the biological approach are experiments and the case studies. Now in this first paragraph, you are clearly seeing that I have given an introduction of brain and behavior. What is it? And then I have told that how different methods are used to investigate the things in the brain and behavior that influence the behavior. And then I talk about that there are two research methods. One is experiments and the other is case study. So in specific knowledge, we have second paragraph is your specific knowledge. In specific knowledge, you are going to tell that what experiments are. In second paragraph, you write, experiments are often used by researchers within the biological approach to establish a cause and effect relationship. Experiments start with a hypothesis. To test the hypothesis, researchers manipulate an independent variable to measure the effect offered on a dependent variable, while attempting to keep all other variables constant. Participants are randomly allocated to either a treatment group where the IV is manipulated or a control group where the IV is not manipulated. Now here what you have done is, or let's say what I have done here is, the first was a general paragraph, general knowledge. The second is specific. I'm telling what experiment is about. I'm telling about the features of the experiment. So I'm writing what is IV, what is DV, which are the main key features of an experiment. The second is I am also linking experiment with the biological approach. That is also important because our whole question is about biological approach only. Then in the third paragraph, I actually write about the study. So in the third paragraph, I write a study that includes experiment. Now I'm giving you one of the study here. You can write any study that you want that includes experiment. Okay. That includes experiment. So you can write any that you want. I'm giving you one of the study. You may write this one as well. So one example of an experiment was done by Megha and Cahill. They wanted to see the effect of the hormone adrenaline on the creation of emotional memories. They hypothesized that adrenaline interacts with the amygdala to create emotional memories. Participants were randomly allocated to one of three groups. Each group say a series of slides, but in one group, the control one, a boring story was read. In the treatment group, they heard a story about a boy who was in a car accident and had his feet severed, a very emotional story. The third group heard the traumatic story but were given beta blockers which inhibit the release of adrenaline. 2 weeks later, the participants were asked to answer a series of questions about the slides. The researchers found that the participants who had heard the traumatic story remembered more details than the unemotional story. They also found that those that had heard the traumatic story but had taken beta blockers remembered no more than those that heard the boring story. The experiment indicates that adrenaline may play a significant role in the creation of emotional memories. Now in this one, when you're writing a study, make sure you're writing the aim of the study, the sample of the study, what method was used. It was an experiment that was being used. What was the IV, what was the DV, and what was the effect like. So that you have to explain that what was the experiment and the procedure about. And the last is the result and the conclusion. If you're writing all these main 4 points of the study, you are going to get full marks in your study. Okay. Now you are done with your study. Now comes the main part, evaluate. In the question, we have a command term, evaluate. That means we have to tell about its strengths and weaknesses. Now let's see how do we do that. Now in fourth paragraph, we have strengths of the experiment. Like I already told you before, we have to write the strengths and weaknesses of the research method and not that of a study in this particular question, because they are asking to evaluate the research method and not evaluate the study. So must keep that thing in mind. Now the strengths of experiments include that they attempt to control extraneous variables. By doing so, they have high internal validity. That is, you can say that the IV most likely caused the change in the DV. In addition, because they're highly standardized, they can be replicated. This allows other psychologists to test the reliability of the results. Now here I have given the strength. Now comes in the weakness. However, experiments suffer from low ecological validity due to the highly controlled environment in which the behavior is observed. The procedures are often highly artificial, such as the one by McCock and Cahill. It could be argued that the results do not show us how adrenaline functions under normal conditions. Often experiments have the problem of demand characteristics, where the participants figure out the goal of the experiment and then act in a way to help out the researcher. However, in biological research, this is often not possible. Blocking adrenaline seems to make it impossible for the participants to create strong memories of the story, regardless of whether the participants know the aim of the study. Finally, experiments in the biological approach often take a reductionist approach, looking at the effect of a single IV on a DV. Now, in this evaluation is a very, very important part of your answer where you are actually going to get marks, because this is what you're supposed to write. You're supposed to evaluate. Now here, look at the three things. First, I did the evaluation, that is, I wrote the strengths and the weaknesses. Second keyword was the research methods. So I am evaluating the research methods that are being used in the study. Third is that it is from biological approach. I am majorly linking that strength and the weakness of the research method that is being used in this biological approach. So in a biological study, when we are in specific studying biological approach, in that particular thing, specific research method is being used. Is it good or is it not, and why? So I am considering in evaluation all the three things. I am linking all the three things: strengths and weaknesses, research method, and biological approach. So all these three things are being included. I hope you understood. We'll go further in this, and now we'll do the second specific knowledge. Now in second one, another method used in the biological approach is a case study. Now this is a research method that we are going to explain, and we are going to tell the key features of the case study. So this is an in-depth study of an individual, often with a particular condition such as brain damage. The researchers study a case in order to know more about how a particular brain structure influences a behavior. In case studies, no IV is manipulated, so it is not possible to establish cause and effect relationships. Case studies use triangulation. Many different research methods, observation, interview, surveys are used in a single case, and often different researchers or sources or data are used. Now in my other videos where I have taught you everything about case study, you can refer to that particular video, case study, and you can see that what are case studies, what are the key features of the case study, which I have already told you, explained it to you in that very video. You can write all those features here. Now another important point here, when you're telling about case study and its features, don't write it in general that what a case study and these are the features of the case study. Link it again with the biological approach, that in biological approach, why case studies are used, what is the benefit of using case studies, what are the reasons of using case studies in biological approach. Okay, so that because our particularly question is about brain and behavior, about biological approach, so must link one thing with the other. Okay, now now we have given a specific knowledge. In regard to this specific knowledge, let's give an answer. Now the study that is written here is about, I have given is about Milner. Milner studied HM who due to epileptic attacks had tissue from the medial temporal lobe, including the hippocampus, removed. The result was that HM could not store new semantic or episodic memories. He suffered from interrogate amnesia. To study HM, the researchers carried out tests like an IQ test, observed his behavior, interviewed him, and eventually an MRI. The researchers were able to conclude that the hippocampus plays an important role in the transfer of short-term memory to long-term memory. Now we are done with the study. Now let's evaluate it. Then comes the evaluation. Again, like I told you before, evaluate the research methods and not the study. So let's evaluate how case study was as a strength or as a weakness in this particular scenario. Now, case studies collect rich data. They are also a more holistic approach to a research question. Because case studies use triangulation, the validity of the results is confirmed within the study. The results are considered credible. However, there are limitations of case studies. When studying participants with brain damage, there are ethical concerns about whether informed consent can be given. In the case of HM, who could not remember what happened 5 minutes ago, this is a problem. Another limitation is that results from case study cannot be used to make generalizations about human behavior because they represent unique individuals. However, there are other case studies that show that hippocampus is very important in storage of memory and support Milner's findings. When several case studies are used together, they can show us important biological correlates of behavior. Now in this evaluation, again, I am not just talking about what are the limitations and strengths of a case study. I am also connecting it with the Milner study and with biological approach. So I am saying that how case study has a strength and a weakness specifically in Milner's case. In this particular study, what are the strengths and the weaknesses of the case study? Okay, so this is very important. When you're evaluating, just don't write the strengths and weaknesses of the case study in a very general form. You might get not full marks. Okay, maybe examiner somewhere will deduct your marks because you're not linking it with the study and the biological approach. You're simply writing the strengths and weaknesses of the case study. So while you write the strengths and weaknesses of the case study, link it with Milner's study or any study that you are writing and with the biological approach as well, and then evaluate it as a whole. Then after you're done with your evaluation, with your studies, with your specific and your general knowledge, the last part comes in, then conclusion. Conclusion is also very, very important. It carries 2 marks. So let's see what conclusion is. Using a combination of methods allows researcher to get a better understanding of the role of biological factors on behavior. Case studies such as that of HM give invaluable insight into conditions that could not otherwise be studied. An experimental method can be used to establish cause-effect relationship between biological factors and behavior. So here we are completely done with the answer. If you want, you can actually note down the whole answer and make your own notes. I'm not saying that you should write as it is. Please add on your own valuable learned points and data with whatever you have with you given by your teacher in school. So once you have written all the details here, I have given you the whole answer and how to structure the similar answers. Now you know if similar kind of a question comes in, how you need to structure an answer. Now you have it and you have the exact answer for this particular question as well. So don't think that you will write only the case study and you will give 2 case studies. 2 studies that are based on case study. So don't do that. You will not get good marks. Use 2 things. Use one as experiment, the second as case study. So at least give 2 research methods for sure to get good marks. So that is all. I hope you understood how to write this kind of a question, what was the question about, and how to structure the answer well. So if you write this answer, I'm sure you're going to get very good marks. And that is it. I hope you understood. And if you have any doubts, if you need any more clarifications, please write in the comments below. And if you liked my video, please share, like and subscribe to my channel so that everything you get to know about IB psychology, the concepts as well as the answers to more questions.